Hi guys, I'm live. I just thought I wanted to do a music theory video. Hope it's not nonsense, hope it's not boring or redundant material, but I just thought I wanted to do a video on music theory. So bear with me, hopefully we can enjoy it and maybe learn something. So there's two top different uh, kind of genres I want to talk about as far as the theory. First is the notes itself, in the line of negative harmony study and Ernst A. Levy's book, A Theory of Harmony, which negative harmony kind of came from. I don't know if other people have quoted him or he deserved it, but if anybody says they made up negative harmony and doesn't quote Ernst A. Levy's A Theory of Harmony book, is kind of maybe plagiarizing, but whatever. And then the second area I would like to talk to is about my own theory of the four types of music based on the four combinations of 5 and 7 note scales and 3 and 4 note chords. So here goes. First, the Ernst A. Levy thing. Negative harmony is a word that was invented around the theory of Ernst A. Levy in his book, A Theory of Harmony. Ernst A. Levy didn't call it negative harmony. Other people did, but just because they named Ernst A. Levy's theory doesn't mean that they invented it. So anyway, that's a good book to check out. I checked it out because I had a library card for the 5 college, Claremont colleges, because I'm a Harvey Mudd alumni. Even though I only did 3 years, it's enough to be considered alumni. So I had a library card, and I went to Hana Library, which is the main 5 college library, and they had the book, so I read it basically. But then now I can't find it there, and it may be missing. Maybe somebody stole it. I don't know. It's a hard book to come by, I think. Anyway, let's talk about that, and let's talk about my own theory, and that's the start. So Ernst A. Levy's premise is that everything comes from overtones, which is basically multiples of the frequency that you start with. The fundamental frequency could be 50 hertz, and then the first overtone would be 100, and the third one would be the second overtone would be 150, and the third overtone would be 200. Any multiple of the original frequency is called an overtone. And if you just talk about a partial, that includes the fundamental. So the fundamental will be the first partial. So the first overtone will be the second partial, and so forth. It's just a different way of calling the same thing. So it turns out there's a thing called the scenarios. That's the first 6 SIX partials. So if I start with 50 hertz, that 50 would be the first one. 100 would be the second one, 150 would be the third one, 200 would be the fourth one, 250 would be the fifth one, and then 300 would be the sixth one. And those 6 partials make up something called the scenarios, because every note in the scenarios is consonant with a major triad. In fact, the scenarios creates a major triad. The 7th partial is basically between it. If the original frequency is C, then the 7th partial is between A and B flat, so it's out of tune. It's too flat to be a B flat and too sharp to be an A. It doesn't even count. It doesn't even add any material. It's a dissonant overtone. And the 8th partial is just the double octave. 1, 2, 4, 8. So 2 is the first octave, 4 is the second octave, and 8 is the third octave. So 8 doesn't add anything. So the first 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make the scenarios, and within that you get a major triad. So let's say that 1 is C. So C would be the first partial. Then, and that would be frequency 1. Or you could call, the frequency could be just called N, any number. And in fact, in the case of C, I think it's 256 hertz. I think that's middle C, something like that. And then the second partial would be the twice that. That would be the octave of C. So now between the first partial and the second partial, you have an octave, 2-to-1 ratio. So the octave is the first interval that comes from the scenarios, and then the second interval is 3-to-2. That's between G and C, and that would be made a perfect fifth, because a perfect fifth is 3 times the. Oh, I got to take this call. Okay, so that was that. Let's see if I can get myself back here. How do I do this? I can't see myself very well now, but I just took a call from a friend of mine. I wanted to tell him about my $300 I made from YouTube today. Sorry about the interruption. So, 3 times the frequency of the first partial is actually an octave in a perfect fifth. But since the second partial is an octave itself, then the 3-to-2 ratio is actually a perfect fifth, which is the second interval that comes from the scenarios. The third interval is between the fourth partial and the third partial, and that's between 4 times the frequency, the original frequency, and 3 times the original frequency. That's because 3 times the original frequency is a perfect fifth in an octave, 4 times the frequency is a double octave, and the difference is a perfect fourth. So 4 to 3 is the 1/3 interval in the scenarios, which is a perfect fourth, because there's a perfect fourth between a fifth and an octave. Between a fifth and an octave is a perfect fourth. And then the fourth interval that comes from the scenarios is between 5 and 4. Well, that's because 5 times the original frequency is a major third plus 2 octaves, and 4 times the original frequency is 2 octaves. So the difference is between that is a major third. So 5 to 4 is a major third. And then the last interval, the 1, 2, 3, fifth interval in the scenarios is the minor third, which is between 6 and 5. 5 is 2 octaves plus a major third, and 6 is 2 octaves plus a fifth. And the difference between, if you take the 2 octaves away, the difference between an octave and, let me say that again. Love you. Let me reiterate that. Between 6 and 5, 6 is 2 octaves and a fifth. 5 is 2 octaves and a major third. If you take the 2 octaves away, then the 6 to 5 is the difference between a major third and a perfect fifth, which is a minor third. So minor third is the fifth interval implied by the scenarios, which is the ratio 6 to 5. So then you have a minor third. Okay. So basically, you have a blown up major triad: octave, fifth, fourth, major third, minor third. That's called the scenarios. If you go to 7/6, that's a dissonant note. It's between a major 6 and a minor 7th. It doesn't really help anything. So there's that. And then let's say, so now we have the origin of a major triad, and let's say we start on C. So we have a C major triad. That would be C, E, and G, and then C. The C is the octave above the original C. Now here's the deal. You have something that's theoretically possible but not heard in nature, called undertones. The undertones is where we get the negative harmony concept. That means every note that implies a C rather than every note implied by a C. So that would be the reverse concept, which is called undertones. You can't hear them, but they exist on paper. So in other words, a note that makes C an octave would be another C. That would be an octave below the C, and that would be the second partial from below, undertone partial. I don't know. That's my own term for it. I just made it up. And then the next interval would be an octave plus a fifth down, which would be an F. So you have, because an F plus an octave plus a fifth makes a C. So now you have, but an F is also a perfect fifth below a C. So now you have an octave below and then a perfect fifth below. And then the next interval would be another C. That would be a fourth below the fifth below. That's also a double octave below, which would be C. So then that would mean you have C, double octave below, then F, octave plus a perfect fifth below, and then C, an octave below, and then up to your regular C. And then so far we have C, F, C. So basically that's what we have. And next would be the fifth partial from below, which would be a major third below the C. That would be an A flat, because an A flat is a major third below a C. So now you have an A flat, a C, an F, a C, and then the C. So far, and that would be two octaves plus a major third below the C, or if you want to cut out the octave difference, just a major third below the C. And finally, you have the next one below that would be a minor third below that A flat, which would also be a fifth below the C, which is another F. So that completes the lower scenarios, or undertone scenarios, if you want to call it that. So from above you would have C, F, C, A flat, F. But from below, if you just count the same thing I just said, but from below it's F, A flat, C, F, C, C. And that, coincidentally, that makes an F minor triad, which is literally a major triad starting on C but going downwards, the opposite direction, which is why they call it negative harmony. So in negative harmony terms, an F minor triad is the negative harmony of a C major triad. And you can study this from other people, Rick Beato and ever. He's an arrogant dude, but whatever. And then there's that. But I want to take it another step. Just maybe it's a slight step forward from that. I mean, it's not any big deal, but there's another way of looking at the same thing. Instead of that, what I just said, I'm gonna call relative conception. We can relative conception is the same note that generates the overtones and undertones in both cases of the major and the minor. The absolute conception, which is another word, which is a different thing, is the same. Is the two harmonies the same root going up that would make that harmony? So in other words, let me just try to explain that. In relative conception, the negative harmony of C major is F minor. But in absolute conception, you just make the F equal to the C and call the relative, the absolute conception of minor from C major would just be C minor, because they both have the same root note. And then the major would be C, E, and G, and the minor would be C, E flat and G. And that comparison is called absolute conception. Ernst A. Levy brings that out in the book Theory of Harmony, whereas a lot of people that tout him don't bring that point out, because I don't think they read the book very well, or maybe they're just not intelligent enough to understand it, or maybe they forgot what they read. But anyway, in absolute conception, you just say this: the C major is a root and a major third and a fifth, and the C minor is a root, a minor third and a fifth. So major C, E, G, C major, minor C, E flat, G, C minor. And then the advantage of relative conception is love you. Oh, I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. The advantage of relative conception, everything makes sense theoretically. The advantage of absolute conception is it's easy to do practically. It's much easier to say that if I want a C major triad, I have C, E, G. If I want a C minor triad, it's C, E flat, G. You just flatten the third or sharpen the third. That makes it easier for practical terms, Most people, when they're playing guitar or piano or whatever, I think, probably don't say, well, I'm in E major, so my negative harmony version of that would be an A minor triad. I don't think they do that. I think they say, I'm an E major triad right now, and the negative harmony is an E minor triad. It's much more easier to say major or minor, rather than having to worry about, well, technically the negative harmony of an E major triad would actually be an A minor triad, because A is a perfect fifth below E. So, there's that little distinction, and don't forget that distinction, though. It's important, and people don't bring that out because they didn't study Ernst A. Levy well enough, I think. So there you go. There's my little tout about the scenarios, overtones, tones, and negative harmony, and absolute conception, relative conception. So, wait, here we go. So, I think that covers that, except I want to bring up one more thing. There's also two kinds of inversion. and this doesn't get talked enough about. People that they just like the word negative harmony and they think it's cool, but they don't talk about all the other things around it. Another one around that is harmonic inversion versus melodic inversion. Now, melodic inversion is just taking the same intervals but going in the opposite direction. So the melodic inversion of let's say CEG would be C A flat F. You're just taking the same intervals but going in the opposite direction, but the notes change. Well, with harmonic inversion, you keep the same notes, but the intervals change, and you keep the same notes, but the intervals change because you hit a different voicing of the same harmony. So if CEG is your original chord, a harmonic inversion would be CGE. The E just went up an octave, which makes a different set of intervals with the same notes. That's called harmonic inversion, whereas melodic inversion keeps the same notes, the same intervals, but changes the notes. So at CEG, if you start with CEG, C major, the melodic inversion would be C A flat F. So that makes the same intervals, but the opposite direction and different note. Let's see if I can reconnect it here. I think I'm live. I am. Anyway, so in melodic inversion, the intervals stay the same, but then change. So the melodic inversion of CEG would be C A flat F. But in harmonic inversion, the intervals change, but the notes stay the same. So one of the harmonic inversions of CEG would be CGE. Then you would get harmony. It's always melodic inversion. We're talking much about melodic inversion. It's messy. We talk about harmonic inversion because that's where we get the idea of different inversions of a chord. So let's say CEG is a root position inversion of a C major triad. Put the C up an octave, I get EGC. That's a harmonic inversion of the C major triad, but the intervals change, but the notes stay the same. But now you have a first inversion of a major triad because the major third's on the bottom, which is because it's EGC. And then finally, the second inversion, you put the E up an octave, and now you have GCE, and that's the second inversion because the fifth is in the lowest note. So that makes also same notes that you started with, just different intervals, and that's called harmonic inversion, as opposed to melodic inversion, which changes the notes but keeps the intervals exactly the same. There's a mess there. People don't want to talk about it because it's hard to understand. It makes you scratch your head, and it's not fun. But it doesn't mean it's not as important as just touting, I know negative harmony and I'm cool. Well, what are you using it for? And do you really know all the theory, or you just know a cute word? Anyway, there's that. Anyway, finally, I can barely see myself, but I guess I'm there. Finally, I want to talk about my theory a little bit, the theory that I have, and I want to make a little thought about it. But something tells me I want to do that in another video because I can barely see myself right now, and I'm also on a walk, and I also could talk about theory better with the guitar in my hand, so I think I'll do it later.